We usually think of software as just a tool, right? Something that gets updated, gets replaced, no big deal. But what if every single version of the software we use is actually something more? What if it's a unique cultural artifact, like a snapshot of a specific moment in time? A snapshot that we are, well, systematically erasing. That's what we're digging into today, this whole fight to save our digital heritage. Okay, so let's start with a question that might sound a little out there. Does software have the personality? I mean, think about it. You have an app you use all the time, maybe a photo editor or your favorite social media feed, and then one day it updates. And yeah, there are new features, but doesn't it ever just feel different? Like maybe the algorithm is a little off, or the whole vibe just isn't quite the same anymore. That feeling is exactly what we're talking about. So this brings us to this idea of a ghost in the machine, that unique character, that soul that defines one specific version of a piece of software. So what are we really talking about when we say software personality? Look, it's so much more than just the code. It's this whole complex mix, right? You've got the developer's original vision, the specific hardware and systems it was built for, and even the historical data it was trained on. Every single version is its own unique thing, with its own history and its own little quirks kind of baked right into its DNA. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. That unique personality, that ghost in the machine, it often just vanishes. Poof, gone forever with every single update. And this is the trade-off we're constantly making, whether we realize it or not. I mean, sure, we get new features, code improvements, and that's great, we want that. But just look at what gets lost in the process. We lose the unique behaviors of that older version. We lose the ability to go back and get the exact same results. We lose the entire cultural context it lived in. It's like we're trading a little piece of history for a software patch. And listen, this is not some abstract academic idea. I bet a lot of you have felt this firsthand. Think about a recent ChatGPT update. The forums and social media just lit up with people saying, hey, it just feels different. The way it responded, its style, its whole personality had shifted. And that feeling, it wasn't in your head. It was the very real, tangible loss of a specific digital character we'd all come to know. So this is way more than just a minor inconvenience, right? It's basically a form of digital amnesia. We are actively losing these verifiable, reproducible slices of our own technological history. And that has some pretty serious consequences for our culture, for our researchers, and for our collective memory as a whole. Okay, to really get a handle on just how high the stakes are, let's look at this incredible, almost accidental story of digital preservation. It's the story of a cathedral that was found inside a video game's code. This is just an amazing story. So for the video game Assassin's Creed Unity, the developers went all out. They used super detailed laser scans and historical documents, basically academic-level research, to build this stunningly accurate 3D model of the Notre Dame Cathedral. And then the unthinkable happened. In 2019, that devastating fire tore through the real cathedral, and in that moment, this video game asset was suddenly transformed. It went from being part of a game to being a priceless digital artifact, a perfect snapshot preserving architectural details that were now gone forever. It created this immense new value for researchers, for education, you name it. But here's the really scary part of that story. We just got lucky. I mean, think about it. What if that game didn't run on modern computers anymore? What if all that data was trapped on an old, obsolete console or on some server that got shut down years ago? That incredibly valuable piece of our cultural heritage, it could have been lost forever. And that's the point, right? We can't just rely on luck. So, if luck isn't a strategy, what is? What's the solution? Well, it means we have to start consciously and deliberately building a kind of digital ark, something to carry our digital heritage safely into the future. And, the biggest hurdle here isn't really about the technology. It's about the system, or the lack of one. Right now, there's just no systematic public funding or infrastructure for this stuff. It's all kind of left up to private companies to maybe do it, or these small, scattered, and usually underfunded projects. But the good news is we have a blueprint for how to fix this. First, we need to create dedicated public budgets just for digital heritage. We can build partnerships between public and private sectors, maybe with grants or tax breaks to encourage companies to archive their older software to save those unique personalities. And this is crucial. We've got to standardize the rules for how we tag and preserve these digital artifacts. And of course, work with universities to train the people who will actually do this work, the next generation of digital archivists. When you boil it all down, the goal is really a shift in how we think.
It's about taking these incredibly valuable digital assets that are usually locked away in private hands and figuring out how to turn them into a permanent public good that everyone can access and learn from.
And that really brings us to the big question, the big picture. What kind of digital legacy do we actually want to leave behind? What we're really talking about here is creating a proper digital heritage infrastructure. And look, this isn't just about saving a couple of old video games or apps. This is about building the libraries, the museums, and the archives for the 21st century. It's about making sure our entire digital civilization doesn't just disappear.
Because at the end of the day, when we talk about preserving the personality of a piece of software, what we're really talking about is saving the story of our time. It's a record of our innovation, our design ideas, our mistakes, our progress, everything. It is a fundamental, defining part of who we are right now in this century.
So I'll just leave you with this to think about. Imagine it's 100 years from now. When people look back at our era, what parts of our digital world will they actually be able to see and experience? What software, what AI, what digital creations from today do you think are so important that we have a duty right now to make sure they're saved for the future?